Well, welcome everyone. It is time for another edition of TRC Talks. And I tell you what, we have been having a great time doing these and bringing kind of different thoughts, different chamber professionals on, kind of looking at different ways. And I'm really, really excited about this one. Of course, doing total resource campaigns all over the country, we have the opportunity to meet a whole lot of people because really what makes the TRC work are the businesses, the members of the Chamber of Commerce. And through that, we get a lot of those business representatives and we get to train them and interact with them and just kind of get a good relationship going with them, especially if they're really good volunteers. And so through a lot of questions from some YGM chambers, really just asking, how do you engage volunteers? How do you do it a little bit better? What is really in it for those volunteers? How can they use a total resource campaign to really grow their business? I had a specific chamber exec ask me, do you have any really good bankers that do the TRC really well and really have seen some significant growth in their business development by doing the TRC? And one volunteer immediately came to mind. And instead of just hooking the two of them up so that they could kind of share some trade secrets, we decided to bring them on and let them be the guest for this TRC Talks. And so really that's kind of the basis of this. We're going to be talking a lot about how volunteers, especially in the banking industry, use a total resource campaign to grow their business development and their get stronger relationships with their clients. But of course, it's applicable for all types of business representatives that use a total resource campaign. And honestly, even further than a total resource campaign. Maybe you don't do a TRC at your chamber, but you really want to use the chamber or provide the tool to your business members so they can use the chamber to grow their business. I'm sure you're going to get some secrets out of today. And so I am going to bring on Greg Burks from Tupelo, Mississippi. He is president of the Renaissance Bank Corporation there locally in Tupelo, and they have been a strong team for Tupelo's TRC, which they call REACH, for a number of years, and currently in their total resource campaign. And as business typically goes, had a little scheduling thing come up for Greg, so he is joining us by telephone. We won't be able to have him video today because I wanted to make sure he was safe in transporting from one to the other. But Greg, are you there?
I am here, Jason. Glad to be with you guys today.
Great. Good to have you. Good to have you. Like I was telling them, it's been 7 years since Tupelo started their TRC, their REACH campaign, and you were one of the very first team captains that were kind of secured and have been there all 7 years, seeing their growth. I'm just going to kind of start back at the beginning, really. Do you kind of remember that first recruitment process, why you kind of agreed to do this thing at the time that you didn't know what was called REACH, but said, oh, sure, I'll do it?
Oh, yeah, Jason, you know how it goes. Like most of us down in the bottom of the trenches, you're kind of pushed just a little bit. And I guess I'll say that I was voluntold from above to assist, but with the campaign. But I knew after talking with the powers that be, it was going to be a fun and a challenging and most of all, an interactive campaign. I'm pretty familiar with actually, I'm very familiar with CDF here in Tupelo and all that they do. So I knew they would make this a fun event also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those of you who are listening, when he says CDF, that's the name of their chamber there. It's not the chamber. It is the Community Development Foundation. And part of that CDF in Tupelo is the chamber arm. It is the chamber, but it's known as CDF. So we'll be using CDF a lot here in these comments. So I wanted to kind of let you know that. Well, Greg, as you came on as a team captain and kind of learned the process, learned what you were supposed to do and go get other people, just because of Renaissance footprint in Tupelo, we just kind of automatically assumed and knew that y'all were going to have a corporate team. You were going to kind of go back into the bank and get a lot of your coworkers, your counter co-parts to come and kind of formulate that team. What was your recruiting goal that first year? You know, when you thought about, okay, I'm going to go get team members, how did you decide to recruit them? How did you bring them in? What was kind of that interaction for you?
Well, you know, kind of my vision that first year was to recruit, number one, you know, well-rounded, diversified team within our bank. You know, number two, those people I wanted to be sales-oriented. Obviously, it's a sales program, a campaign that we're running, but I wanted them to be customer facing. You know, I wanted Renaissance, number one, to be successful, and you know, at the end, be on that podium to show our community who our lead Primo Bank was in Tupelo, and also throughout North Mississippi. You know, I wanted individuals who were goal-oriented achievers, strong relationships, connections throughout our footprint, and certainly with strong work ethics that liked, or should I say, loved a challenge. But most of all, like I said, just a well-diversified crew from the different arenas within our bank.
You know, kind of in that process of a TRC, it starts with that. And we've said for years, I mean, it is truly what it is, that a TRC, a reach in y'all's case, is very relationally driven. It's all based on relationships. And so, you know, when you come to that first training and you hear what we need and you start looking for those volunteers that you described within the bank, truly, what was kind of the first part of the process? Was it at one of those trainings? Was it once the campaign kind of got started that y'all really realized that this was going to be good for the bank's business development? You know, you knew it was going to be kind of something you were doing for CDF, and you hoped the bank was going to get something out of it. But when did you really realize it was going to be a tool that the bank could use to really solidify those business development relationships?
You know, Jason, I think when it first clicked for me is probably when we had our first volunteer meeting. We had the initial kickoff, and we immediately had a volunteer meeting following that luncheon, and that's when it really clicked with me. We every year immediately after the kickoff, we do this, and to kind of create that excitement. We kind of like to get a fast start right out of the box each year, but my philosophy with anything competitive is to come out of the starting box on fire. I always like to be leading the pack, not chasing the pack with these type things. So we have Renaissance out first. But the benefit of the bank clicked, I guess, when we got around that conference table for the first time to brainstorm and discuss our goals and how we would be successful, not only for CDF and for the bank, to showcase the many relationships that each of us had and brought to the table. It was just a way for us to show value, add to our clients, to our closely held relationships. But I think it was probably that very first meeting when we saw that enthusiasm, just sitting around the table brainstorming about the entire campaign.
And when he's saying a volunteer group, you're really referencing, that's not anything really to do with the campaign. That's you bringing your team members together at the bank to kind of have an introductory aspect to it, to how y'all are going to approach it, right? You're talking about something individualized, not necessarily through CDF, right?
No, correct. This is all coming from each. When we envisioned this thing, it was. I didn't want to reach outside. I knew we had enough people internal to the bank to form a team and to be successful inside the bank, because we have obviously everybody's got clients, we've got prospects, and I knew that we had a great sales team internally from the different arenas in the bank. So I wanted to have a complete bank only team was my.
So when you are sitting there kind of in that team structure of, you know, hey, as a bank, here we are and here's our people. I really remember, in fact, when that chamber exec asked me if I knew of a good banker, literally the first memory that popped in my mind was when we were after y'all's first year in Tupelo and we were doing focus groups and seeing what worked and what didn't. And I'll never forget, we had the volunteers themselves just a good cross section of them first, and then we brought you team captains in afterwards. And there were a lot of those volunteers because y'all had such a great team that were in that focus group and beginning to talk about these meetings that y'all were having, that y'all met weekly, and it was really a strategy for y'all to reach out to your customers and your clients. And I remembered seeing some of the faces of those other volunteers kind of going, we didn't do that. We didn't have a meeting. What are they talking about? And there was really kind of some, I'll use it loosely, but I'll say there was some jealousy there going, that's what we really wanted as a team aspect. And then as we kind of brought all the team captains in and you began to share that's what you did, I remember some other team captains kind of moving their head around, kind of going, oh, we didn't do that. That's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that next year. What was the process of those weekly meetings outside of the campaign for y'all that you held at the bank, that you treated as a sales meeting? What was kind of that process for you to get your team to think about blank clients and how to engage them in this process?
Wow, that's it was, I guess what we did is we brought to the table our solid relationships. You had to know what the opportunities were there that were offered through CDF, through our campaign, and they were obviously many of those. But we kind of brought to the table our solid relationships, people that would be easy for us to call upon. And then we tried to match those. We just went around the table and, if it was someone out of insurance or someone out of employee benefits or private banking or retail or corporate loans, we just all brought those relationships and tried to match what sponsorships there were available in order to benefit those clients. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And from what I'm hearing there, you mentioned a lot of different divisions with the bank. Do you think it's important to have those different kind of diversifications of bank roles on a team? Kind of those divisions. Is it important to have kind of somebody from each division within a bank, or do you feel that there can be some overlap in that structure of thinking about divisions? How did you find the right people to put on the team?
Well, again, that kind of goes back to the sales oriented. I wanted someone out of basically every department we have in the bank. I wanted, as I said, private banking. I wanted corporate lending, retail lending. I wanted treasury management. I wanted insurance. I wanted mortgage. There was a whole list of departments that I listed. And then we just went in and kind of cherry picked who we wanted out of those departments, who were people that were obviously sales oriented, people that weren't afraid to make calls, people that were customer facing in those departments. And that's kind of how I went after that.
And because that diversification aspect, you also got the diversification of your client base. When y'all started talking to your clients about all of these opportunities that CDF had, what was your approach? Was it very much kind of a philanthropic, hey, just donate here to the CDF? Or were you truly acting as kind of the connector of knowing your client so well and knowing a growth point that CDF was providing? Did you kind of have to kind of paint that picture for them to see this as the opportunity that you saw it for them?
But, in Tupelo, it's, we're a community, pretty small community. We're a great size, about 36,000 people. So it's a community that we know most of the businesses. Somebody on my team around that table knew the business. So I think, it's just hard to, golly, I'm kind of confused. I'm in some traffic right now. It's kind of hard to think and drive and navigate right now.
Absolutely.
But
go ahead.
Go ahead. I know I didn't answer that question. I'm sitting here thinking, but go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay.
Re-ask it.
Yeah, well, the question was, when you are looking through the process, if you've got all this diversification of the team members, that means you're going to have a diversified client base that you're going to talk to.
Certainly.
So was it that you were just approaching those clients and saying, hey, the chamber needs a donation here, give some? Or was it really kind of a strategic plan for y'all, knowing the clients that you did because you had those relationships, knowing where they were going to want to grow and kind of matchmaking them with the chamber's opportunities to grow in that regard?
Yeah, no doubt. It was very strategic. Everything we did, we didn't want to waste their time or our time in making those calls. So we had a list. We condensed it down when we figured out who we were going to call upon. We kind of looked at it, strategized, and thought what would work best for them as far as getting involved with the Reach campaign. So yes, it was extremely strategic.
Right. And we're looking at 7 years of history here. And because of the way the TRC works, and y'all have that first right of refusal to go back to those clients, kind of how has that process worked for you in renewals because of the strengthening ties that you've had with those clients? Do y'all typically just go back and say, hey, you want to re-up? Or because of your relationships that you have with them, do you kind of take them new options that the chamber might have, or talk to them a little bit about that renewal process? Is it kind of just automatic, or do y'all kind of have that conversation again?
No, we due to the way ours is set up, and I'm assuming all of them are, we go in with the renewal contract, and that's all you can do on the front end. And most of those, I would say, well, I know on the 12 that I've contacted, or I'll say 10 that I've contacted this year, I got 9 of 10. And the one that didn't renew said, come back to me when all the other options are available. I just didn't want to go with the same thing that I did last year. But yes, it's we always go in with the new options, and we won't know until next week with our campaign when we have our initial kickoff as far as what will be the new options. But we always leave the door open to additional needs and additional marketing opportunities with everybody we talk to. You're certainly trying to upsell them and get them involved even more with more opportunities, and there again, that depends on the business itself and what works best for them.
Well, and honestly, it's the way the TRC is set up. But honestly, from what I'm hearing from you as well, that kind of second touch, that opportunity to leave the door open, it really kind of solidifies an additional touch for y'all to touch that client again. Am I correct in that thought process?
Oh, 100%. I mean, anytime you can get an opportunity to call on someone, and we do a lot of dual calling, but anytime you get a chance to call on them, you're just building a relationship. Is the way I see that. If I get in front of them with our Reach campaign, our CDF campaign, we're certainly talking that, and that's the priority, but there's always business being talked. And if it's not, you're just solidifying a relationship and helping them, in the community, helping them get involved and helping them market themselves. So, you're kind of seen as a second arm to their business when you come in with these opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what it's all about. You talk about right now, you talk about the current environment that you've got, and, the 9 of the 10 that you've talked to, because y'all are currently in your TRC, your Reach campaign. And so I remember if we, rewind a year ago, y'all were in your campaign when this unknown thing back then of COVID happened, and we had to kind of pivot and make some changes. But now that we've kind of lived with COVID for a year, how are you and your team kind of experiencing kind of maybe a COVID pushback, or how is COVID affecting the business environment, the sales that you're doing with the chamber? What objections are you hearing? Just really kind of how has COVID affected this process for you?
I can't say that I have had a single negative. Most of the businesses that I have called on personally, and I think most of our renewals that my team has called on so far, had really good years. Most of them had record-setting years, if you can believe that. But we have not had much from the COVID, any resistance at all that I have had personally. So it hasn't been a negative, in my opinion, at this point.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what a lot of times people are shocked to hear. I think it's just kind of in life in general. We typically hear a lot of the negative. Sometimes the positive doesn't percolate up to our senses because people just don't talk about it as much. But I think a lot of the chambers that we deal with, yes, are those businesses that have been affected by it, absolutely. But it's not the kind of whitewashing broad stroke of every company. And I think that goes back to y'all's business relationships, that these companies, you can have that conversation with them and kind of go for there. Greg, you talked a lot about the different departments that you access, the representatives in the bank that you brought forward. A number of communities across the country isn't as fortunate in Tupelo and kind of having the main bank right there, such a good, strong corporate partner. They've got a lot of local branches that might only have 3-5 employees there. And, kind of in rural America, we're kind of even seeing those, bank branches kind of shrink in the number of people that are there versus how many people used to be in that branch, maybe 10, 15 years ago. How do you see TRC still being a benefit to those branches? Do you see a change? If a local chamber approached a bank and said, "Hey, I think this would be good for your business development," do you think it's something that those bankers should latch on to? Do you understand? Maybe if they go, "Well, maybe it's just too busy. We've got a small footprint of staff here. I don't know that I have time." How would you combat that?
Jason, every bank, it doesn't matter what size, has a wide range of clients and probably even a wider range of prospects which to call upon. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how small a local community bank with a few employees would be effective in a reach campaign. That's hard for me to say because I'm just never been there. But reach, just gives a salesperson, be it a branch manager or a loan officer or a teller in any arena of the bank, a reason to reach out and get in front of clients or prospects, whether to discuss reach or discuss other bank needs, or really just to further solidify a relationship for the bank, as I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. But I would think all personnel within an organization should always be looking for ways to further development relationships and friendships, as I would call them. So, absolutely. It doesn't matter how small you are, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Always absolutely. Opportunities there.
I agree. Now, you've been in it 7 years. Everything can't always be, a bed full of roses. What has been maybe either I don't even want to say maybe a negative issue that y'all have experienced as a bank in Reach, or maybe at least a growth point that as y'all approached Reach, you pivoted and kind of did it a different way? Any growth points through these 7 years and how you've used the program?
I can't say there's been a growth point, or you just said a negative issue. I don't see any negative issues with what we've gone on the last 5 years. Wherever you turn, their friends, their clients, their prospects, their new businesses being started, and their businesses interested in getting involved. Us in particular, over the years we've done this, we've increased our goals considerably every year, and we've met and exceeded each of these every single year.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, it's 7 years. Why are you still involved here? I mean, a lot of times you can commit somebody 1-2 years, but here's 7 years, and you're still talking about Reach. You're still talking about the benefits that it's given you. Why have you stayed involved for 7 years?
Well, I'll have to throw some kudos out to Judd and Zandra here at CDF. They have made it a lot of fun, and I think the creativity that they have put into this year in and year out. Obviously, there's the big carrot of the trips and the incentive and the monies and so forth. But I think it's the fun factor that Judd and Zandra both give to this each year, and we've got just a tremendous crew, not just with Renaissance, but with the other 5 or 6 teams here. We have a lot of fun when we meet weekly to go over things. Yeah. So it's a fun factor.
Well, and I'm glad you said it. A lot of times we tell a lot of chambers, there's something about fun, and sometimes there's just, we're a business. We're a business organization. Our people don't necessarily do fun during the workday. I'm glad to hear you say that because, it's something we've always believed in. You can still be very professional and still do work. But this day and age, anytime you can introduce a little bit of fun, people kind of gravitate to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As you see the future, what do you think the future is for Renaissance Bank into the Reach campaign?
Well, my good friend, long-term friend, Brad Miller, and myself have co-chaired this Reach committee every year since its inception, since 2017. And we see a lot of new faces within our bank in each of the arenas, and we think that we need to get more involvement with them, with a younger crowd, more involvement in the community, and assisting these clients with CDF. We think that in order to be successful, not only personally, but for our bank to be successful and our community to be successful, we must have new blood taking over the wheel of this leadership in all the arenas within our bank.
Right.
It's always been, enjoyable on a new program like this that we've started here. It's always been fun to watch one of these things get off the ground, to watch it grow and see it succeed, and always enjoyable to bring this new blood and youthfulness into a fun project like CDF has created with this Reach campaign.
Great. That it is, it's a beautiful way to, kind of start that new crop coming up and just kind of passing that baton. And honestly, Greg, I think that's a great place to end today in kind of looking to the future. Certainly appreciate you spending some time with us today and sharing what really TRC, what Reach has meant to Renaissance Bank. And I'm sure many of our listeners will get some good aspects of how they can take this message when they're trying to recruit some bankers in their own communities in that regard, or really just volunteers in general. So thank you for your time. I know you have got another appointment, so we'll let you go, but appreciate your time with us today.
Jason, thank you very much. I've enjoyed being on, and I hope you guys learned just a little bit from this little banker in Tupelo.
Absolutely. Have a good one, Greg. So, there you have it from a banker. A lot of times we in this chamber world, we kind of think get immune to chamber professionals and what we see from the view of the chamber to our members. But I knew that he would bring kind of a different slant to it, a different dimension. And they've been successful for 7 years just because of that forward thinking. And I think that's the true nature of a TRC and business development. A lot of times people ask me, well, when does a TRC fizzle out? When do we not make it work anymore? And I think it's when you lose that business development. You recruit right. It's about relationships. It's not just about getting the job done for the chamber. But we say often that a TRC should be a win, win, win. Win for the chamber because you're getting the resources financially and others all at one time. Find a win for the businesses because they're using the chamber as the tool that we know we should be, and they're able to grow their business. But it should be a win for those volunteers. It should be a win for the businesses that are offering those employees up to say, this is a great business development tool. It gets us in the door. It begins to solidify our relationships with our clients in a different way. All of which Greg said. So feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, if we can help give you any additional information. Maybe you've got a volunteer segment in your campaign or your chamber, and you want to see maybe another like type business person in another community and maybe how they do it well. We'd love to kind of connect the dots for y'all and get y'all talking. But hopefully you've learned a little bit today. Look forward to the next time we can meet together at TRC Talks. But until then, y'all just keep on keeping on. Have a good one.